3 days after my wife's brain surgery, she finally managed to say my name. It took almost 20 seconds. Her lips trembled. Her right hand barely moved. The word came out broken and soft. Rob. I cried anyway, not because she sounded like the woman I had been married to for 46 years. She didn't. I cried because the word meant Helen was still in there, fighting her way back through swelling, weakness, and a language system that no longer obeyed her. I recorded 10 seconds of video and sent it to our family group. I wasn't asking our children for money. I wasn't even asking them to come to the hospital. I only wanted them to tell their mother they loved her. Our daughter, Claire, replied almost immediately. Tell Mom I'm proud of her. I'll be there after work. 17 minutes later, our son Jason answered. She probably won't recover enough to live independently. We need to start thinking about putting her somewhere. Then another message appeared. Also, who has authority over Mom's trust now? We should handle the Dublin property while she can't make decisions. I looked at Helen. She couldn't walk without help. She couldn't form a complete sentence, but tears were running down the side of her face. That was when I realized my son wasn't only afraid of losing his mother. He was afraid of losing access to something he had already started treating as his. I did not argue with him. I took screenshots, put my phone in my pocket, and called my wife's attorney. People sometimes ask what the worst part of brain surgery is. They imagine the operating room, the long wait, the surgeon finally appearing with a tired face and saying the words you have been begging to hear. She made it through. Those hours were terrible. I will never pretend otherwise. But for me, the hardest part came afterward. It came when Helen opened her eyes, looked directly at me, and I had no idea how much of her was still able to reach me. The surgery itself had gone as well as anyone could reasonably hope. The tumor was a meningioma, technically benign, but large enough to press against areas involved in speech and movement. Her neurosurgeon removed it. There had been no major bleeding and no confirmed stroke. On paper, we were fortunate. Then you walked into her room. Her right arm barely lifted from the mattress. Her right leg seemed to belong to someone else. When she tried to speak, her face showed the whole sentence, but only fragments came out. Dr. Nina Patel, the rehabilitation neurologist, explained that Helen had expressive aphasia. She may understand much more than she can produce, she told me. Do not confuse slow speech with absent thought. I heard the words. I am not sure I understood them at first. That Wednesday morning, I sat beside Helen's bed holding a styrofoam cup of coffee that had gone cold. The television was on mute. Sunlight cut across the blanket and lit the silver in her hair. I held her left hand. Our wedding rings clicked together whenever her fingers shifted. Claire called, I told her. She'll come after school. Helen blinked once. We were building a language out of whatever still worked. 1 blink meant yes. 2 meant no. A squeeze of my hand meant she understood but was tired. Sometimes there was nothing, and I had to remind myself that nothing did not necessarily mean absence. Would you like to send the kids a little video? She looked uncertain. You don't have to say much. 1 blink, I pressed record. Hey everybody, I said quietly. Mom wanted to say hello. Helen looked toward the phone, her lips moved. Cell, she stopped, closed her eyes and tried again. Claire. Name came out rough, but complete. I swallowed hard. That was good. She tried another name. Jason, she could not finish it. Instead, she gave the smallest smile. 10 seconds. That was all. I sent the video to our family group with 1 sentence. Mom wanted to say hello. She's working hard today, Claire responded first. Then Jason's messages came. I read them more than once, hoping I had missed something generous between the lines. I had not. When I turned the screen toward Helen, I told myself I was including her. In truth, I had not yet learned the difference between inclusion and exposure. She read every word. The tears came quietly. I locked the screen and put the phone down. I'm sorry. Helen closed her eyes, a tear reached her jaw. Then she slowly lifted her left hand and placed it over mine. Even from a hospital bed, she was trying to comfort me. That was Helen. For 46 years, she had been the person who steadied the room, without making anyone feel weak for needing it. My phone buzzed again. A private message from Jason. Dad, I'm coming by tomorrow. There are papers we should sign while everything is fresh. It'll make things easier for everyone. I stared at the message. Something about the phrase "while everything is fresh" bothered me. Medical facts were fresh. Fear was fresh. Exhaustion was fresh. Those were not conditions under which anyone should be asking for signatures. I saved that message too. The next morning, Jason arrived wearing a navy suit and carrying a leather portfolio. That detail mattered to me. He was not dressed to sit with his mother. He was dressed to conduct business. Jason kissed Helen lightly on the forehead. "Hey, Mom." She gave him a faint smile. He did not seem to notice how much effort that smile cost her. He looked toward me. "You getting any sleep?" "A little. Can we talk outside?" "We can talk here." His eyes moved toward Helen. "Some of it is financial. If it concerns her, she stays." He hesitated, then nodded as though he were accommodating an unreasonable request. "Sure." He pulled out a tablet and opened a document. "I've been talking to my accountant. There are some temporary authorizations we should handle." I did not take the tablet. "For what?" "Routine management. Bills, insurance, property. Things that can't stop because Mom is in rehabilitation." "Which attorney prepared this?" "My accountant had somebody draft it." "Who?" "I don't know the person's name." "Then I'm not signing it." He sighed. "Dad, this is not the time to get stuck on technicalities." Technicalities. Helen's property, authority, and judgment had become technicalities before she had even left the hospital. I finally looked at the screen. The title read Authorization for Trustee Action and Temporary Asset Administration. Halfway down the first page, I saw the words Dublin Residential Property. I looked up. "What does your mother's rehabilitation have to do with the Dublin house?" "It doesn't." He answered too quickly. Then he corrected himself. "I mean, somebody has to manage it." "It is already managed. You know what I mean." "No, I don't." His jaw tightened. "Mom is not going to be handling financial decisions anytime soon." Behind me, Helen made a sound. Jason kept talking. "We need to be realistic." Another sound came from the bed, sharper this time. I turned. Helen was looking directly at him. Her face was not confused, it was angry. She lifted her left hand and pointed toward the tablet, then toward Jason. Her lips moved, nothing came out. Jason gave her the patient, patronizing smile people sometimes use with someone they have already decided is no longer fully present. "Mom, don't worry about this. It's just paperwork." Helen slowly shook her head once, deliberately. "No," I said, handing the tablet back. "I'm not signing anything." His expression changed. "Dad, you're exhausted, yes. You're overwhelmed, yes. Then let me help." "You can help by sitting with your mother." For a second, neither of us moved. Then he slid the tablet into the portfolio. "You don't understand how serious my timing is." The words came out before he could stop them. "My timing. Not ours, not Helen's, his." He corrected himself. "I mean the family's timing. I think today's visit is over. You want me to leave? I want you to come back when your first concern is your mother." He stood there for another moment, looking as though he expected me to reconsider. For most of his life, I probably would have. Then he touched Helen's shoulder. "I'll see you soon, Mom." She did not look at him. After he left, the room became quiet again. I helped Helen drink some water. She stared toward the window. I kept thinking about the document. The Dublin property. Jason saying my timing. How prepared he had been. An hour later, I drove home to shower and pick up clean clothes. I went into Helen's office because she kept a list of medications and insurance contacts in the top drawer of her desk. The room looked exactly as she had left it. Family photographs, tax folders. A ceramic bird Lily had made in middle school, a row of binders arranged by year. Then I noticed the gap on the shelf. The blue leather document folder was missing. Helen had owned that folder for 12 years. It held a certification of her trust, copies of our powers of attorney, summaries of property ownership, and a handwritten list of professional contacts. It never moved. I searched every drawer, the safe, the bedroom closet, and the filing cabinet. Nothing. Standing alone in that office, I remembered a conversation from 6 weeks earlier. Jason had asked whether our estate papers were still organized. At the time, I thought he was being responsible because Helen's surgery was approaching. Now I was not so sure. Back at the hospital, Dr. Patel stopped me in the hallway. "Helen buttoned 2 buttons today," she said. 6 months earlier, I would have thought that sounded insignificant. That day it sounded like a victory. Dr. Patel studied my face. Something happened. It was not a question. "Our son wants to begin making long-term decisions. That can be reasonable. He wants to do it without asking her." Her expression changed. "Robert, I need to be direct. You have been answering for Helen too." "I was helping. I know. But helping and replacing are not the same. The words stung because they were true. I had spent 3 days asking Helen yes or no questions, then filling every silence with what I assumed she meant. Jason was doing something more dangerous, but I had started down the same road without realizing it. When Helen woke, I told her the blue folder was missing. Did you move it? 2 blinks no. Did you tell anyone where it was? 2 blinks. No. Did Jason ever ask about it? She stared at the ceiling for several seconds, then nodded once. It was not evidence. It was not enough to accuse anyone. But it was enough for me to call Evelyn Price. Evelyn had handled Helen's trust and estate planning for more than 20 years. She answered on the second ring. Robert. How is Helen? Stable, I need your help. I told her about the messages, the hospital document, and the missing folder. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked, did Jason mention the Dublin property specifically? Yes. There was a pause, then she said, Jason contacted my office 6 weeks ago. I sat straighter. What did he want? An updated certification of Helen's trust. Why? He said you and Helen were reorganizing your estate. We weren't. I know. My assistant refused to release it without Helen's authorization. Why didn't you tell us? Adult children ask estate questions more often than you might think. Usually it is curiosity or poor boundaries, not fraud. Usually the word hung there. There's something else, Evelyn said. Last week, Riverstone Credit Union contacted my office, seeking confirmation of trustee authority connected to the Dublin property. I felt cold. Why would a credit union ask that? I don't know yet, but I intend to find out. Dublin House was a 4-bedroom home in a good suburb of Columbus. Jason and his wife, Megan, had lived there for 7 years with their daughter, Lily. Friends congratulated Jason on the house. He never corrected them. What most people did not know was that the property belonged to the Helen Carter Revocable Living Trust. After Jason's first business downturn, Helen bought the house through the trust to give his family stability. Jason and Megan signed an occupancy agreement. Their monthly payment covered taxes, insurance, and routine maintenance. They did not hold title. Helen called the arrangement a bridge. Jason called the property our house. I had contributed to that confusion. At a barbecue years earlier, I stood on the back patio with Jason, while Lily ran through a sprinkler. Take care of this place, I told him. It'll probably be yours someday. Helen heard me. That night, she said, you cannot promise property that is not yours. I apologized to her. I never corrected Jason. That failure would matter later. Evelyn told me not to confront him. If we are wrong, you accuse your son unfairly, she said. If we are right, you give him time to destroy evidence or create a better story. For the first time in Jason's 44 years, I was being told to treat him as someone who might hide records. I hated the idea. The next morning, I met Evelyn in her office. She placed 3 documents on the conference table: Helen's trust certificate, her durable financial power of attorney, a printout from Riverstone. Who owns the Dublin property? She asked. Helen's trust. Who is the trustee? Helen. Who becomes successor trustee if she resigns, dies, or is determined to be incapacitated according to the trust? I do. Has any of that happened? No. She tapped the Riverstone document. Then you do not currently have trustee authority. I know. Being Helen's husband does not give you automatic control. Being named in a power of attorney does not make you trustee. And even if you were acting as her agent, you would be required to act for her benefit, not to secure Jason's company. I looked at the page. Riverstone's file listed me as the person authorized to act for Helen. I never signed anything. Evelyn nodded. I believe you. She did not say that belief was enough. Instead, she introduced me to Daniel Wu, a civil attorney experienced in property disputes and financial fraud. Daniel spoke calmly, which irritated me until I understood that calmness was part of his job. We need to preserve records before anyone is confronted, he said. He is my son. That does not change the sequence. You think he did this? I think we have questions. We should not turn questions into conclusions before we have documents. He contacted Riverstone's fraud department and asked them to secure the application materials, communication records, and access logs connected to the proposed financing. That afternoon, while I sat beside Helen, I asked the question I had been avoiding. Did you ever authorize Jason to borrow against the Dublin house? She looked directly at me. Then she tapped the blanket twice with her left index finger. Tap, tap. When our children were young, Helen and I used silent signals while playing cards. 1 tap meant maybe, 2 meant absolutely not, 3 meant ask later. We had not used those signals in years, yet she remembered. 2 taps absolutely not. I squeezed her hand. I believe you. Her shoulders relaxed. My phone rang. Daniel. The loan was not merely requested, he said. Riverstone approved a $600,000 business line. My grip tightened around the phone. And $185,000 has already been advanced to Northline. For a moment, I stared at a framed photograph on the hallway wall without seeing it. Can the rest be stopped? The remaining funds are frozen. How did they release anything against a house Jason doesn't own? Riverstone has an existing commercial relationship with Northline. The lender received documents that appeared to show valid authority and allowed a limited provisional draw, while final title and collateral review were still being completed. And the review found a problem? Yes. The title company requested additional confirmation. That request led Riverstone back to Evelyn's office. I closed my eyes. So if Evelyn had simply confirmed it, the lender might have proceeded further. The thought made me feel physically ill. Daniel told me the bank file contained a document bearing my electronic signature. I never authorized it, I understand. Change the passwords on your email, cloud storage, and financial accounts. Do not forward documents carelessly, and do not discuss the loan with Jason until Riverstone has secured its records. I should call the police. You may decide to make a report. The lender may also refer the matter. But first we need to understand what was submitted and by whom. He used my name, possibly. He used Helen's trust, possibly. The money is already gone. The money was transferred. We do not yet know where it went. His restraint made me angry because I wanted certainty. But certainty was what Jason had been abusing. He had treated assumptions as permission. I could not do the same thing while trying to hold him accountable. When I told Helen the amount, she pointed to herself. No. You did not approve it. And she pointed to me. No, I did not either. Then she pointed toward the door. Jason. I could not ask her to say his name. Not yet. I only told her the truth. The lawyers are finding out what happened. She held my gaze. Her expression told me she already understood more than I was ready to say aloud. Claire arrived that afternoon with soup, clean socks, and a bag of oranges Helen had no chance of eating. She looked at me. You look terrible. Thank you. I'm serious. So am I. Then her face tightened. What is going on? Jason says you're refusing to discuss Mom's rehabilitation placement. He brought financial documents into the hospital. He said they were care authorizations. They weren't. What were they? I can't explain everything yet. That is not good enough. Helen made a sharp sound from the bed. Claire stopped. Helen looked at her. I know, Claire said quickly. I know you understand, Mom. Helen forced the words out slowly. No. She took a breath. You forgot. Claire looked down. I did. Helen reached for her hand. The moment was interrupted by a message from Jason. Riverstone is saying there's a problem with the credit line. Did you contact them? He knew about the freeze before I had told him I knew about the loan, then he called. Did you tell them to freeze the line? I let several seconds pass. What line? Dad, don't do that. Do what? The Riverstone credit facility. There it was. Not confusion. Not a guess. Knowledge. Does that have to do with me? We discussed helping Northline. We did not discuss using Helen's property. You said the family would stand behind me. I've said many things over the years. You said the house would be mine someday. The old promise had become part of his financial planning. I closed my eyes. A careless comment is not authorization. I didn't say it was. Then send me the exact documents you believe I approved. He hesitated. I don't have them in front of me. You called about a frozen credit line, but you don't have the paperwork. The bank has it. Then send me your copies. His frustration sharpened. This is not the time for a legal game. I have payroll. 32 employees depend on that company. That stopped me. Those employees were real. Some had worked for Jason for years. They had families and mortgages. If Northline failed, people who had done nothing wrong could suffer. Jason used that silence. I need one email from you, he said. Just confirm that we discussed using family real estate for temporary financing. We did not discuss using the Dublin property. We discussed helping me. That is not the same thing. He wanted me to take several true conversations and arrange them around a false conclusion. I asked him to send his request in writing. His email arrived within 10 minutes. He wrote that Helen knew Northline had short-term financing needs. True. He wrote that I had agreed the family should help protect the company. Broadly true. He wrote that everyone expected repayment after a pending contract closed. Something he had told me, but not something Helen or I had accepted as the basis for a loan. Then he asked me to confirm that this accurately reflected our prior discussions. Daniel helped me respond. Jason, I cannot confirm that statement. I did not authorize any loan, lien, security interest, or use of the Dublin property. Helen's legal and financial matters are under review by counsel. Please preserve all related records. Jason called immediately. I let it go to voicemail, then he texted, "You're going to destroy a company over paperwork." A second message followed. "Mom would never want this." I showed Helen. She read slowly, then pointed to 3 words on her communication board. He does not know. She was right. He no longer knew what she wanted because he had stopped asking. That evening, Megan brought Lily to visit. Lily stood near the bed, trying not to stare at the walker or Helen's curled right hand. Helen smiled. Lily started crying. I told myself I wouldn't do that. Helen lifted her left hand and touched Lily's cheek. Later, while Helen slept and Megan stepped out with Claire, Lily sat beside me, twisting the drawstring of her sweatshirt. "Grandpa, are we going to lose the house?" "Why would you ask that?" Dad said. "Grandma's house could keep everyone from losing their jobs." "When did he say that?" "A few weeks ago." Before the surgery, I did not question her further. She was 15, not a witness I intended to use. "You don't need to solve this," I told her. "Dad said the house was his." "It isn't." Her face changed. Jason had not only built a loan application around a property he did not own, he had built his family's sense of safety around it. When Megan returned, I asked her to speak with me privately. Claire came too. Megan already knew there was a problem at Riverstone. Jason had told her I had approved temporary financing and then changed my mind. "I never approved it," I said. "He said you did." "He is wrong." "Did Helen approve it?" "No, how can you be certain?" "Because I asked her, and because she refused him before surgery." Megan looked toward the door. "She can barely speak. She understands." "I did not say she didn't. You implied it." Megan sat down. "This doesn't make sense. Jason told me the house was part of his inheritance. It is not guaranteed to him, but you told him it would be." "I said it would probably be his someday." "I should not have said that. You let us build a life there. Helen gave your family stable housing at far below market cost." Her face flushed. "So we are tenants now?" "You signed an occupancy agreement. Jason handled it. You signed it too." "He said it was estate paperwork." Claire asked gently. "Did you read it?" Megan looked embarrassed. "No. I asked whether a notary had recently come to the house." She nodded. 2 weeks ago. Jason said it was an occupancy acknowledgement. Was I there? No. Did the notary watch on a video call? No. Did Jason tell you I had already signed? Yes. He said you signed remotely. I did not. Megan stared at me. "You are sure?" I understood why she asked. Accepting my answer meant accepting that her husband had lied to her about documents tied to their home. Yes. I suggested she speak with an attorney who represented her alone. "You are telling me to hire a lawyer against my husband. I am telling you to understand what may have been submitted in your name." When we returned to Helen's room, Jason was already there speaking to Dr. Patel. He was pressing for long-term placement planning. "If her cognitive function doesn't return, her language production is impaired," Dr. Patel said. "That is not the same as cognitive failure." Jason continued talking around Helen. "We need to do what is best for her." Helen made a sound. Jason smiled toward her. "Mom, don't strain yourself. Dad understands." Her face reddened with effort. She stopped to breathe. "Understand." Another pause. "Him." Her eyes never left his. "Fine." No one moved. The sentence was not smooth. It did not need to be. Jason's smile disappeared. "What did you tell her?" he asked me. "What she asked. And what was that?" "Whether she authorized the loan." His eyes moved to Megan. "You discussed that with her?" "She is the trustee. She is recovering from brain surgery, and she still owns her decisions." Dr. Patel ended the visit, saying Helen needed rest. Jason left without saying goodbye to her. Afterward, Helen tapped my hand twice. Absolutely not. The next morning, I watched Helen try to feed herself oatmeal with her left hand. A nurse offered to help. Helen shook her head. The nurse moved the bowl closer. It took Helen several minutes to manage one bite. She spilled some. She tried again. I had learned not to jump in before she asked. Not every struggle is an invitation to take over. Sometimes premature help becomes another form of erasure. Dr. Patel and a speech therapist named Marissa brought Helen a clearer communication board and an alphabet sheet. Marissa set a rule. No one finishes Helen's sentence unless she asks. Helen looked at me. "I've been warned," I said. She almost smiled. They asked basic orientation questions, then more complex ones. Did she know where she was? Yes. Did she know why she had surgery? Yes. Did she want me making financial decisions without consulting her? No. Dr. Patel asked whether she wanted her communication abilities and comprehension documented more clearly. Yes. Whether she wanted to speak with Evelyn. Yes. After they left, I asked simple questions. Did Jason ask to borrow against the Dublin property before surgery? Yes. Did you agree? No. Did you tell him no clearly? Yes. Did you ever authorize me to approve it for him? No. Then I asked the harder question. Did I make him believe the house would someday be his? Helen looked at me. Yes, the word was clear. I lowered my eyes. I know. She pointed to the alphabet board and began spelling. Yo kept peace. Then she continued. Used it. I stared at the words. Helen had warned me for years that Jason treated boundaries as temporary. Every time he made a bad decision, I softened the consequence. When he was 26 and his first business partnership collapsed, I paid a tax debt he should have negotiated himself. When Northline had a payroll shortfall, I transferred money without a written loan agreement because he was our son. When he needed a stable school district for Lily, Helen's trust bought the house. Every rescue seemed reasonable by itself. Together, they taught him that enough urgency would eventually turn no into yes. I'm sorry, I said. Helen placed her hand over mine and shook her head. She was not telling me I had done nothing wrong. She was telling me an apology was not the work. The work came next. Evelyn visited that afternoon. She explained that before changing any estate documents, she needed to confirm Helen understood the property, the family relationships, and the consequences of any decision. Helen identified the Dublin house as trust property. She confirmed Jason did not own it. She understood that collateral could allow a lender to take property if debt was not repaid. She understood that an estate amendment could change who inherited. Still, Evelyn recommended a formal neuropsychological evaluation with communication accommodations. Helen agreed. When Evelyn asked why, Helen struggled for several seconds. My choice, she paused. Safe. To protect your choice, Evelyn asked. Yes. That evening, Daniel called. The mobile notary kept a detailed journal. She had notarized an occupancy acknowledgement signed by Megan. She had not met me or Helen. She had not witnessed any trustee authorization. The notarial block attached to Riverstone's authorization appeared to have been copied from the legitimate occupancy document. There was more. The digital file had been assembled on a computer assigned to Northline Workplace Solutions. The evidence was no longer moving in several directions. It was beginning to point toward one place. 3 days later, I sat in a Riverstone conference room with Daniel, Evelyn, and Paula Grant, a senior fraud investigator. Paula placed 2 documents side by side. The legitimate occupancy acknowledgement had Megan's signature, Jason's signature, and a proper notarial seal. The second document was titled Trustee Authorization and Property Consent. It carried what looked like my electronic signature. It represented that Helen was incapacitated, that I had authority to act, and that trust property could secure Northline's credit line. The notarial section at the bottom was identical to the one on the occupancy document, not similar, identical down to the placement of the stamp and the small imperfections in the scanned image. The notary never saw this document, I asked. No. She never met me? No. She never met Helen? No. Paula showed us metadata indicating the authorization had been edited more than once. One edit occurred 3 days before Helen's surgery. Another occurred the evening after Jason brought the tablet to the hospital. The application had been submitted through Northline's established commercial banking login. Paula was careful. The electronic records point to a device assigned to Northline. They do not, by themselves, tell us who is sitting at the keyboard. She showed me an email included with the application. It stated that Robert Carter, acting under Helen Carter's durable power of attorney, had approved the temporary use of trust real estate. I had never written it. The language was adapted from Helen's genuine power of attorney document. Someone had taken legitimate legal language and used it to create the appearance of authority that did not exist. Paula explained that the lender's initial draw had been released because Northline was an existing customer. The submitted packet appeared complete on its face, and the collateral documents were still moving through final title review. The provisional advance was limited, she said. Once the title company requested independent trustee confirmation, the remaining line was frozen. On the way out, Paula said, "People think financial exploitation happens because families don't trust each other. Often, it happens because they trusted without verification for too long." At rehabilitation, I told Helen what we had found. She closed her eyes, then pointed to the alphabet board. Remember what? Email. An email to Jason? Yes. I wrote no, she managed. Claire helped me search Helen's old laptop that evening. We found the email from 3 years earlier. Jason, I love you, and I want your business to succeed, but I will not use trust property as collateral for your company. You do not have my permission now, and you will not inherit permission from my illness. Love. Mom, the final sentence chilled me. 3 years before surgery, Helen had anticipated exactly what Jason later tried to do. She understood him more clearly than I had allowed myself to. My phone buzzed. Jason had sent a single message. Can we fix this before lawyers ruin everything? I looked at Helen's email again. The lawyers had not ruined anything. They were only uncovering what had already been broken. Megan began searching the home office. She brought unopened envelopes from Riverstone when she met me at a coffee shop near the rehabilitation center. Jason always handled the mail, she said. I stopped paying attention. You trusted your husband. I also enjoyed not knowing. That was honest. She had accepted the house and the lifestyle without asking how much of it rested on assumptions. But she had not forged anything, and Helen refused to treat Megan or Lily as though they had. Megan looked exhausted. Jason says the bank mixed up 2 files. The notary says she witnessed only 1 document. He says clerical mistakes happen. They do. You think this wasn't one? The copied signature came from somewhere. So did the copied notarial block. She stared through the coffee shop window. What happens to Lily? Nothing should happen to Lily. We may lose the house. The house was never legally yours or Jason's. She flinched. I softened my tone. That does not mean your life there was not real. It means the ownership was different from what Jason told you. She looked down. I should have asked questions. So should I. That surprised her. I told her about my old promise, about the tax debt I paid, the payroll shortage, the times I asked Helen to reconsider after she had already said no. I helped teach him that family boundaries were negotiable, I said. You didn't make him forge anything. No, he owns that choice. I own the years I made every earlier choice easier to escape. Megan held the unopened bank envelopes with both hands. I don't know whether to confront him. Speak to your own attorney first. I still love him. I know. What if the company really was 1 contract away from recovering? Then he had several legal choices: sell equipment, reduce operations, seek restructuring, tell his employees the truth, ask us and accept our answer. He said there was no time. Urgency does not create ownership. That afternoon, Lily asked whether I would still love Jason if he had done something wrong. Yes. She looked relieved. Then I added, loving someone does not always mean protecting them from what they have done. I was saying it to her. I was also saying it to myself. Claire struggled in a different way. She had always resented how much financial help Jason received. When I finally told her the full story, part of her anger was old. I spent years being the child who didn't ask for anything, she said. Jason asked for everything and got rewarded for it. You weren't punished. It felt that way. She was right enough that I could not dismiss it. Helen had been the stricter parent. I had been the rescuer. Claire learned independence partly because she believed there was no room for her needs beside Jason's emergencies. Our son's choices had not created every fracture in the family. Some were ours. Recognizing that did not excuse the fraud. It simply made the story more honest. Near 11 one night, Jason appeared at my front door. He looked different from the man who had brought the tablet to the hospital. No tie, shirt collar open, hair damp from running his hands through it. We need to talk. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me. I know you've been talking to lawyers, Jason said. I waited. I know Riverstone froze the line. You're making this into something it doesn't have to become. I did not create the documents. He looked away. You really think I would steal from Mom? I think you used property you knew she had refused to pledge. I was trying to save Northline. You had no authority. There are 32 families depending on that company. I know. I was going to repay it. Then why did you hide it? He was silent. Because you knew we would say no, I said. He looked at me. I did not think of it as permanent. I thought I needed one season, one contract, one chance to get through. I believed him. That was part of the pain. Jason was not a stranger who had spent years plotting to rob us. He was a frightened, entitled man who kept making the next dishonest choice, because each one seemed necessary to protect the previous one. I never wanted to hurt Mom. Then why did you stop asking what she wanted? She couldn't answer. She could understand. I didn't know that. You knew enough to use her supposed incapacity in a loan file. His face tightened. I already knew what she would say. There it was. He knew she would say no. So he had treated her inability to speak quickly as permission to move past her answer. He reminded me of my promise about the house. You put your hand on my shoulder and said it would be mine. I said probably. I built my life around that. I should never have said it. You gave me your word. No. I gave you an expectation I did not have the authority to guarantee. He stared at me. You don't understand what was happening, then explain it. He looked out toward the dark street. One major client delayed payment for 90 days. Another filed for bankruptcy after we finished installation. I had equipment leases, payroll taxes, and vendors threatening to stop deliveries. If the pending corporate contract closed, I could cover everything, and if it didn't, it was going to. That is not an answer. His voice cracked. I saw the company disappearing. I believe you. I saw people losing their insurance. I believe that too. Then why are you doing this? I am not doing this. I am refusing to confirm something that did not happen. He rubbed both hands over his face. What do you want from me? The truth. You think the truth saves anybody right now? It would have given us a choice before you took one away. He looked toward me. Are you going to help me? For most of his life, the answer had been yes. This time I said, no, I'm going to help your mother. His face went blank. Halfway down the driveway, he turned back. If Mom signs one statement, none of this has to become criminal. That told me he had not come for forgiveness. He had come for another rescue. The next morning, I told Helen everything. When I finished, she pointed to the communication board. Data me. Everyone keeps guessing what I know, she explained slowly. She wanted an independent evaluation. Not because she needed to prove her humanity, because she understood that major legal decisions made during neurological recovery would be questioned, especially by a son already blaming me. She wanted the record to be as clear as her mind. Dr. Samuel Green, a neuropsychologist, met with Helen in the morning when she had the most energy. Marissa supported communication but did not supply answers. Dr. Green used spoken questions, large print choices, simple written prompts, and enough time for Helen to respond without pressure. I waited outside. The evaluation lasted almost 3 hours. Helen came out using a platform walker, exhausted but calm. Dr. Green explained that capacity was decision-specific. Helen had substantial expressive language impairment. She needed extra time, written choices, and occasional clarification. She became fatigued more quickly than she had before surgery, but she consistently understood her assets, beneficiaries, family relationships, and the consequences of changing her trust. In my opinion, he said, Mrs. Carter has the capacity to make estate planning and trust decisions. Helen closed her eyes for a second, not because she had learned something new about herself, because someone had finally documented what she had been trying to tell us. Evelyn then met with Helen alone. I waited in the hall. When I was invited back, several documents were arranged on the table. Helen explained the decisions herself, one short phrase at a time. Jason was removed as a beneficiary of trust principle. He was removed from every fiduciary role. A separate education trust was created for Lily, with an independent trustee and no authority for Jason. Megan could receive limited transition assistance if needed, structured so the money could not be diverted to Jason. I retained lifetime security under the trust. The existing occupancy arrangement for the Dublin house would be terminated according to the agreement and applicable property procedures. Helen also directed a portion of the remaining trust at her death toward rehabilitation assistance. Then she looked at me. No more. She paused, saving him. The words hurt because she knew exactly what I still needed to learn. Every substantive instruction had been given to Evelyn privately. Independent witnesses observed the signing. Dr. Green's evaluation was preserved. Evelyn documented the communication methods used and the reasons for each amendment. Nothing could make the estate plan impossible to challenge. But Helen had made the decisions carefully, not impulsively. When Evelyn asked whether I had pressured her, Helen managed the longest sentence she had spoken since surgery. Robert pressured me for years to forgive Jason. Evelyn looked surprised. Helen gave the faintest smile. It was not a joke exactly, but it was close. Nearly 7 weeks had passed since surgery. Helen could now walk short distances with a cane and someone nearby. Her right foot still turned inward when she was tired. Her speech came in short phrases. Some days were noticeably better than others. She was not restored to her old self. She was recovering. That distinction mattered. Jason requested a family meeting 2 days later. He called it an intervention. His email said I was isolating Helen, interfering with communication, and making financial decisions she might not understand. He requested discussion of her long-term care, my authority, and preservation of family assets. He did not mention the altered authorization or the frozen loan. Helen read the email at the rehabilitation dining table. One line said, "Until Mom can speak for herself, no permanent decisions should be made." She laughed. "Meeting," she said. "You do not have to do this. I know. Evelyn can handle the legal part." Helen raised one finger. Legal. Then a second, family. Both. Daniel warned us not to make the meeting a trap. No one would question Jason about potential criminal conduct. His lawyer would be present. Riverstone's investigation would remain separate. Helen wanted to state her decisions, establish the family boundary, and give notice concerning the house. The meeting took place in Evelyn's accessible conference room at 10 in the morning. When Helen was strongest, Jason brought Michael Trent, a commercial attorney. Megan came separately. Claire sat beside the chair reserved for Helen. Before we left rehabilitation that morning, Helen dressed carefully dark slacks. A cream blouse. Claire helped button low shoes with rubber soles. She refused the wheelchair. Dr. Patel had approved short distance walking with a cane, as long as someone remained nearby. I stood beside Helen while she practiced crossing from the bed to the doorway. Her right foot still dragged slightly. Halfway there, I reached for her elbow. She stopped. "No, I know." She looked down at my hand until I lowered it. Then she continued. When she reached the doorway, she turned toward me. "Wait." She caught her breath. "Until I ask." It was not only about walking. We both knew that. At Evelyn's office, Jason began talking before Helen arrived. "Somebody has to focus on Mom's long-term needs. Dad has been reacting emotionally. We cannot pretend she is ready to manage complex property decisions." Daniel raised a hand. "We will begin when Mrs. Carter arrives." Jason sat for several seconds. The room was silent. Then we heard the cane in the hallway. Tap, step. Tap, step. The door opened. Helen stood there with Marissa several feet behind her. She was not fully recovered. Her right arm remained close to her body. Each step required concentration. No one moved to help because she had asked us to wait until she requested it. She reached the chair at the head of the table. Claire pulled it back after Helen nodded. Helen sat, caught her breath, and looked at Jason. She paused. "A meeting." Jason stared at her. "Now," Helen said, "we have one." He recovered quickly. "Mom, you look great. I'm glad you're improving." Helen opened a folder containing 1 page of large print notes. "I heard you." "At the hospital?" Jason asked. "In messages." "In rehab." He looked toward me. Helen continued. "You said put me somewhere. That was about proper care. You asked who controlled my trust. Because Dad was overwhelmed. I was sick." She took a breath. "Not dead." Jason looked down. "I never said you were dead." "No, you said half gone." His face reddened. "I was scared. So was I. I didn't know whether you would recover." "Neither did I. I was trying to think ahead. To my house? To everything." Evelyn asked that Helen be allowed to establish the facts. "The Dublin house belongs to my trust," Helen said. Jason nodded impatiently. "You asked before surgery to use it as collateral, and we discussed why. I said no. You said you were not comfortable then." "No." Evelyn slid the old email toward Michael Trent. Jason read it. That was 3 years ago. Helen nodded. And? The business was different. My answer was not. Jason leaned back. I was trying to save 32 jobs. You did not ask me. I knew what you would say. Then you knew you had no permission. The room became quiet. Jason looked toward me. I believed Dad agreed. Helen turned toward me. Robert cannot give what is mine. He told me the house would be mine. He was wrong. There was no anger in her voice. Only fact. Jason began explaining where the money had gone: vendor balances, equipment leases, payroll obligations. He had not used it for vacations or a new car. Helen listened. Then she said, "You thought your reason made my no disappear. That isn't fair. You had choices." "What choices?" "Tell truth. Close smaller, sell things, ask for help, and accept no." None of those choices would have been painless. But they existed. Jason had chosen the path that preserved his image and transferred the risk to someone else. Evelyn explained that Helen had independently amended her trust after a formal capacity evaluation. Jason looked at me. "You arranged that." Helen struck the table lightly with her left hand. "I did. You were medicated. You were in rehabilitation." Slow speech. She paused. "Is not no thought." Then Evelyn stated the decisions. Jason was no longer a beneficiary of trust principle. He held no future fiduciary role. Lily's education trust was insulated from him. The existing occupancy agreement would be terminated with formal notice. The initial notice period would be 90 days under the agreement, subject to council's review and any additional steps required if the occupants did not leave voluntarily. Megan closed her eyes when she heard Lily's funds would be protected. Jason noticed. "You're fine with this. It protects her," Megan said. "From me, yes." The word was barely audible. Jason stood, then sat again when his lawyer quietly advised him to. "You're forcing us out of our home." "My home," Helen said. "We paid for it. You paid taxes and insurance, not purchase." Helen looked toward Megan. "Megan and Lily may speak to Evelyn separately." Evelyn explained that Helen would consider temporary housing assistance for them, structured independently of Jason. "So my family is negotiating around me," Jason said. Helen met his eyes. "You negotiated around me first." Then he turned toward me. "Tell her what you promised me about the house." Everyone looked at me. For years I had softened facts when they made Jason uncomfortable. This time, I told the whole truth. "I did tell you the house would probably be yours someday." His shoulders relaxed. "There. I'm not finished." He stared at me. "It was 7 years ago. Lily was running through the sprinkler. I said something I did not have the right to promise. You gave me your word." "No. I created an expectation. I built my life around it. You built debt around an inheritance from 2 people who were still alive." His face changed. "That is disgusting. It is painful. That does not make it false. You know I was not waiting for you to die. Then why did your mother's surgery become an opportunity?" Michael Trent immediately advised him not to discuss the lender documents. Megan asked the question Jason had been avoiding. "Did Robert sign the trustee authorization?" "We had an understanding." "That is not what I asked." He agreed in substance. Megan closed her eyes. Jason had told her I signed remotely. Now he could not say yes. "You asked Lily to feel safe inside a lie," Megan said. Jason looked around the table. "You've all decided what I am." Helen shook her head. "We decided what we will do. That is the same thing." "No," she searched for breath. "What you are is still your decision." Jason turned toward me. "You destroyed this family." "No." I kept my voice calm. "I spent years keeping you from seeing what your choices cost. That ended here." Evelyn slid the formal occupancy notice across the table. Helen said, 90 days. Megan and Lily may speak to Evelyn separately." Jason picked up the notice. His hand trembled slightly. "This isn't over." He looked at Helen. "Someday you'll realize Dad turned you against me." "No," she said. "You did." For 1 second I thought he might apologize. Instead, he gathered his papers and followed his attorney out of the room. After the door closed, strength seemed to leave Helen all at once. I stood. This time I waited. She nodded. Only then did I help her out of the chair. In the hallway, she had to sit after fewer than 20 steps. The meeting had not made her stronger. It had cost her strength. That was important too. She had not walked into that room because she was suddenly well. She had walked in because the decision belonged to her, and she was willing to spend the energy necessary to say so. Megan stayed behind. She sat across from Evelyn with both hands clasped in front of her. "I did not know about the altered authorization," she said. Evelyn nodded. Your own attorney will need to review anything bearing your name. I understand. What do you need first? Megan glanced toward the hallway where Jason had disappeared. A place Lily can live without feeling like the floor is going to disappear. Helen looked at her. We help. She paused. You and Lily. Not him. Megan nodded, tears filling her eyes. That's fair. Helen shook her head. Not fair. Megan looked confused. Helen searched for the words. Necessary. That was the difference. This was not a reward for Megan or a punishment for Jason. It was protection for the people who had not created the fraud, but would still be affected by it. Claire drove Helen back to rehabilitation while I stayed with Daniel. He reminded me that the meeting had resolved only family decisions. Riverstone's review would continue. The lender's legal department would determine whether to refer the matter to insurers and law enforcement. The trust would dispute any claimed security interest and address the advanced funds through counsel. Do not expect speed, Daniel said. I'm beginning to understand that. Do not expect the criminal and civil outcomes to match perfectly. I understand that too. And do not expect Jason to become honest, simply because the evidence is strong. That was harder. Part of me still believed one complete confrontation should produce one complete realization. It did not. People rarely change at the same speed that consequences arrive. When I returned to rehabilitation, Helen was asleep. Her cane rested against the wall. On the bedside table lay the large print notes she had used in the meeting. At the bottom, beneath the sentences she had planned, she had written one line by hand. My voice is mine. The letters were uneven. The meaning was not. Consequences did not arrive in one dramatic wave. They came in envelopes, phone calls, meetings, account freezes, and moving boxes. Evelyn arranged for Megan to speak with separate counsel. Helen's trust offered transition assistance for Megan and Lily, but the payments went directly to the landlord and service providers. Jason could not access them. Megan moved with Lily into a townhouse near Lily's school 6 weeks after the meeting. She did not file for divorce immediately. She called it a separation. Jason moved into a furnished apartment near Northline's remaining office. He left the Dublin house on the 87th day. No one stood in the driveway to watch. I was glad. Accountability did not need to become spectacle. Riverstone never released the remaining $415,000. The disputed security documents were investigated and never became a clean, enforceable lien against Helen's trust property. The $185,000 already advanced was more difficult. Most of it had been used for overdue vendors, payroll taxes, equipment obligations, and debts Jason had personally guaranteed. The fact that he had not spent it on luxury did not make the transaction authorized. It made the damage less theatrical and more painful. Northline entered restructuring. Some employees stayed with a smaller operation. Some lost their jobs. That part troubled Helen and me. Innocent people were affected by a choice they had not made. One former employee called me after hearing rumors about the family dispute. He did not ask for details. He only said, Jason should have told us how bad things were. Some of us would have taken reduced hours, rather than watch him risk everything. That conversation stayed with me. Jason had claimed he acted for his employees. He had not trusted them with the truth either. Riverstone referred the matter to its insurers and law enforcement. Jason communicated through counsel. Discussions concerning repayment, restitution, and possible charges continued for months. There was no arrest in the conference room, no instant conviction, no judge declaring us righteous, just a legal process moving without our interference. For the first time in Jason's life, his parents did not step in front of the consequence. After the title issues were resolved, Helen sold the Dublin house. I thought she might keep it for Lily. She shook her head. Too much weight. She was right. A house can hold memories. It can also hold expectations until everyone mistakes them for ownership. The sale proceeds paid transaction costs, legal expenses, and the amount required to resolve the lender dispute. The remaining value stayed in Helen's trust. Helen did not celebrate, neither did I. The house had still been a gift. Lily had grown up in a stable neighborhood, attended one school system, and slept in the same bedroom for 7 years. That good was real. So was Jason's entitlement. Two truths can exist without canceling each other. Megan brought Lily every other Saturday. We kept those visits separate from Jason. Not as punishment, as a boundary. Lily knew her father had used documents he should not have used. She knew her grandparents still loved him. She knew that love had not prevented consequences. Her education trust remained protected. It could be used for college, vocational training, or another approved purpose. Jason would never control it. Claire began visiting every Sunday. At first, she brought too much food and tried too hard to make up for every moment she had underestimated Helen. Eventually, she stopped performing regret and simply became present. She and Helen watched old movies, did speech exercises, and argued about pie crust. Their relationship became less polished and more honest. My contact with Jason became limited to letters. The first came 3 months after the meeting, 8 pages. He apologized for frightening Helen, then explained the pressure he had been under. He apologized for misleading Megan, then blamed Riverstone for moving too quickly. He admitted using an old image of my electronic signature, then insisted he believed I would have approved if he had explained the situation properly. It was an apology with exits built into every paragraph. I read it twice and handed it to Helen. She read slowly. When she finished, she put it on the table. Not ready. To answer? She nodded. We did not answer. Silence had once been the way I avoided conflict. Now it was a boundary. There is a difference. 6 months after surgery, Helen still searched for words when she was tired. Her right hand never fully recovered. She used a cane outside and on uneven floors. She could walk short distances without it. Though her therapists warned her not to become overconfident, her recovery did not return her to exactly who she had been. It gave her a slower, more deliberate version of independence, no less real. Through an existing community foundation, she established a small grant program for families facing rehabilitation expenses that insurance did not cover: transportation, communication devices, home safety equipment, temporary caregiver relief. She called it the Second Voice Fund. Why that name? I asked. People need time to be heard. One evening in early fall, we sat in the kitchen after dinner. The porch light came on automatically. Helen stood and reached for her cane. I'll come with you. She looked at me. Wait. So I waited. She crossed the kitchen slowly. One step, then another. At the doorway, her right foot caught. My body moved before my mind did. I started to rise. Helen lifted one hand. Not yet. She steadied herself, adjusted the cane, and continued. By the time I joined her, she was sitting in the porch chair watching the maple leaves move in the evening air. I sat beside her. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she said, Jason may come back. You mean someday? Yes, maybe. She nodded. But not same. No, I said. It cannot be the same. A relationship can survive betrayal, sometimes, but it cannot survive by pretending the betrayal did not happen. If Jason ever returned to us, it would not be because time erased the documents, the lies, or the way he treated his mother's impaired speech as an absence of judgment. It would be because he had faced those things without asking us to soften them. That work belonged to him. Helen rested her hand over mine, then she smiled. Not half gone. The words were slow, clear. I turned toward her. No, I said, not even close. That was where we left it. Not with revenge, not with forgiveness we had not reached. With a door that was no longer standing wide open, but was not permanently locked. And for the first time in years, the key was not money, it was truth.